I will make an opening statement before we open up to you for questions. All times that I use will be expressed in Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time or Canberra time. The Australian Maritime Safety Authority is coordinating the Southern Corridor search for the missing Malaysian Airlines aircraft with assistance from the Australian Defence Force, the Royal New Zealand Air Force and the United States Navy. AMSA's Rescue Coordination Centre Australia has received satellite imagery of objects possibly related to the search for the missing aircraft flight MH370. RCC Australia received an expert assessment of that satellite imagery this morning, 20th of March. The images were captured by satellite. They may not be related to the aircraft. The assessment of these images was provided by the Australian Geospatial Intelligence Organisation, or AGO, because that's a mouthful, as a possible indication of debris south of the search area that has been the focus of the southern search operation since Monday, 17th of March. The image is in the vicinity of the search area defined and searched in the past 2 days. Further images are expected after commercial satellites were redirected to take high-resolution images of the areas of interest. These will be provided in due course. 4 aircraft have been reoriented to locate the objects approximately 2,500 kilometres southwest of Perth as a result of this information. A Royal Australian Air Force Orion aircraft arrived in the area about 1:50 p.m. this afternoon. A further 3 aircraft have been tasked by RCC Australia to the area later today, including a Royal New Zealand Air Force Orion and a United States Navy Poseidon aircraft. The Poseidon aircraft should be on scene now. The second Australian Orion departed Royal Australian Air Force Base Pearce at 2 p.m. this afternoon and should be on scene at 6 p.m. this afternoon. The New Zealand Orion is due to depart at 4 p.m. this afternoon and should be on scene at 8 p.m. A Royal Australian Air Force C-130 Hercules aircraft has been tasked by RCC Australia to drop datum marker buoys. These marker buoys assist RCC Australia by providing information about water movement to assist in drift modelling. They will provide an ongoing reference point if the task of relocating the objects becomes protracted. A merchant ship that responded to a shipping broadcast issued by RCC Australia on Monday is expected to arrive in the area about 6 p.m, having been diverted by RCC Australia. The Royal Australian Navy warship HMAS Success is en route to the area, but is some days away. She is equipped to recover any objects located and proven to be from MH370. The focus for AMSA is to continue the search operation with all available ships and aircraft. The ships and aircraft are searching for any signs of the missing aircraft. Weather conditions are moderate in the southern Indian Ocean where the search is taking place. However, poor visibility has been reported, and this will hamper both air and satellite efforts. AMSA continues to hold grave concerns for the passengers and crew on board, and I must emphasise that these objects may be very difficult to locate and they may not be related to the search. Air Commodore McGarry and I will now be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Young, what do the objects look like? What do they appear to be?
The objects are relatively indistinct on the imagery. I don't profess to be an expert in assessing the imagery, but those who are expert indicate they are credible sightings. The indication to me is of objects that are a reasonable size and probably awash with water bobbing up and down out of the surface.
Can you give us any idea of the size? Like the size of a basketball or a seat cushion, or much larger than that?
No, much larger than that. The largest image that I've seen is assessed as being 24 metres. There's another one that's smaller than that, and a number of other images in the general area of the biggest one.
You said that an aircraft arrived at about 1:50. That's almost 2 hours ago now. Have you had any report back?
The aircraft has reported on the weather on scene. That's where I get the information that there is poor visibility in the area, and perhaps Air Commodore McGarry could talk about the implications of that separately.
Is that aircraft on scene, has that relocated the piece of wreckage that was spotted on the satellite?
No, there have been no sightings yet.
What will the merchant ship do? Will that, if it does find the objects, or if it gets to the scene and the objects are there, will it pick them up?
The most likely scenario is that an aircraft will find an object if it is findable, and then report back an accurate GPS position, and AMSA would task the ship to proceed to the area and attempt to see it. That would be our first chance to get a close-up look at whatever the objects might be, and progressively advance the identification of whether they're associated with this search or not.
When was the satellite imagery actually captured? Do you know what time, what day?
We were provided it from the Australian AGO this morning, but I might ask Air Commodore McGarry to speak about the imagery.
So the imagery is being progressively captured by satellites passing over various areas. The task of analysing imagery is quite difficult. It requires drawing down frames and going through frame by frame. The moment that this imagery was discovered to reveal a possible object that might indicate a debris field, we have passed the information from Defence across to AMSA for their action.
AGO are the nation's foremost experts on this kind of stuff. Is it fair to say that if they've had a look at it and believe that it is credibly debris from the plane, that we can sort of draw conclusions from that there's a fair chance that it is?
Look, quite simply, it is credible enough to divert the research to this area on the basis it provides a promising lead to what might be wreckage from the debris field. John, if you want to elaborate any further on that. But
the only elaboration I would make on that is we have been in this business of doing search and rescue and using satellite images before, and they do not always turn out to be related to the search, even if they look good. So we will hold our views on that until they're sighted close up.
What kind of satellite was it that spotted the debris in the first place, and whose satellite was it?
I'm unable to advise on that, I'm sorry. I simply do not know.
You mentioned further satellite imagery. When do you expect to receive that?
Well, AGO will continue to provide all possible support to this operation. The ability to retask assets, commercial and others, to enable us to focus in on an area to support this search will become a priority, but I'm unable to give you any advice on when additional imagery or whether that additional imagery might even hold any further clues.
Mr Young, you said the other day that the water here was very deep. Do you have a more specific idea of just how deep the water is and what would be the nature of the seafloor?
I apologise. I remember taking that question, but I didn't check it any further. I understand it would be several thousand metres deep, and I'm speculating an abyssal plain floor, but I will check it and I will get the information back to you this time.
That'll be a rough floor.
I will check it and I'll get the information back to you this time. Sorry, for the back.
Kilometres from Pierce. How many flying hours is that to actually reach that destination?
So that area is now 4 hours, approximately 4 hours flying time for the P3, and it enables us to spend approximately 2 hours or a little bit more perhaps on station once we get into the search area.
So how much fuel have they got to stay over that area?
Well, it's 2 hours of endurance once we're on station. So it's 2 hours of search time that we can devote. I can't give you how many pounds or gallons of fuel that might equate to.
Mr Young, what would your advice be to the families who've been waiting for 12 days for news of this plane?
I would advise that AMSA is doing its level best to find anyone that may have survived, if indeed the aircraft came into the southern corridor, and if indeed these objects sighted by satellite are associated with the aircraft, that will put us into a more accurate search area than the one we have at the moment.
Yeah, the other day you said you described this operation as trying to find a needle in a haystack. Is it surprising that you possibly detected these objects so soon in this search?
I don't want to draw too many conclusions from this. We have two separate forms of analysis here. You might recall on the slide here the two yellow arrows pointing to analysis done by the United States National Transportation Safety Board about the movements of the aircraft. That has focused searching, and we have now seen satellite imagery of two objects, or a number of objects there. I don't want to draw too much from that. This is a lead. It is probably the best lead we have right now, but we need to get there, find them, see them, assess them, to know whether it's really meaningful or not. And I caution again, they'll be difficult to find. They may not be associated with the aircraft, and we have plenty of experience of that in other searches.
Has this sparked a flood of further assistance offers to Australia now that this information's been found?
Defence, we have had offers potentially from other countries for military assets. The distance to the search area lends itself to certain types of aircraft that have long range and marine search radar capabilities. It is a long way off the Australian mainland, and we are working through defence channels to facilitate the provision of that assistance if those other nations are able to support.
But you haven't taken on any extra assistance at the moment?
We continue to work with those nations to see how they can assist. So,
The Chinese offered formally?
we are aware of the Chinese taking an interest in searching in the southern area, but we continue to work with nations to facilitate their integration into the current search.
And just to be clear, you've...
Sorry, Can I add to that we provide regular briefings for the countries that are involved in this search, including in the Rescue Coordination Centre, where attachés come in on a daily basis, so that we can keep them informed about what's going on.
Just to be clear, all of your resources are now devoted to this specific area. You're not continuing to search any other area?
You're correct. This is close enough to the National Transportation Safety Board's assessed area to be a possible sighting, and we want to find them and we want to work out what they are from seeing them. That's our priority at the moment.
Generally, how, in terms of this area of ocean, which is fairly pristine, how often would one expect to find a large piece of debris like this floating? Is it a common occurrence, or is it something like perhaps aircraft crews, would they see large pieces of debris like this floating as a consequence of storms and things, or is this quite unusually large?
Our experience is that there is debris out there. It can be containers from ships, for example, falling overboard, and other objects of that type. On this particular occasion, the size and the fact that there are a number located in the same area really makes it worth looking at. But I don't want to speculate about what they are until we get there and we see them.
Sorry, can you tell us a little more about how many pieces have been seen? Is it just two? And the dimensions of the other pieces?
No, I can't tell any more about that at the moment.
And when you said, when you said 24 metres earlier in the press conference, do you mean lengthwise? Is it a long? What sort of object?
The image on the satellite image has a blob with an assessment of 24 metres against it, which is the assessment that's been made by the expert that assessed it.
Is there any oil in the ocean around it or anything like that?
You can't tell that from the satellite imagery. Sorry, did you have a question?
When do you think you can bring that thing, that object, back to either Base Pierce or back to Canberra for assessment?
There are many steps to happen before we'd get to that point. We have to locate it, confirm that it belongs to the aircraft, recover it, and then bring it a long way back to Australia. So that would take some time. What we're looking for is a confirmation that it does belong to the aircraft or it does not. And we'll consider what follows from that.
At this early stage of the injury you've seen, is there anything that suggests it is at least part of an aircraft? Are there windows that you can see on it? Are there markings? Are there any bits and pieces that suggest it's actually from an aircraft?
The imagery is not that precise.
Can you provide a clear image, picture of that object?
We're working to provide imagery for you. I don't have it with me right at the moment, but we are working to provide imagery that can release for media purposes at the earliest opportunity.
When will the new further information be released today?
Sorry?
When will the new further information be released today?
Sorry.
Information will be released in media statements as usual. I suggest you talk with the AMSA's media people after the conference.
When do you realistically expect to have some more information, though, based on the assets that you have out there at the moment?
It's in the nature of search and rescue operations that I cannot answer that for you. We have 4 aircraft out there this afternoon. The weather is not playing the game with us. We may get a sighting, we may not. We may get it tomorrow, we may not. But we will continue to do this until we locate those objects or we're convinced that we cannot find them. Thank you very much, everyone.